There are moments when life as you know it completely falls apart. Divorce, loss, failure, heartbreak, financial collapse. It's 2 a.m., you can't sleep, and everything feels like it's over. But here's the truth. This is not the end. I'm Christy Zlakis, and this is a show where we talk about the strategies that turn heartbreak, loss, and failure into success, and share the real stories of people who've done it. Because no matter how dark it feels right now, your story isn't over. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of This Is Not the End. We are here tonight with Judy Stovall. Judy, thank you so much for joining. I really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So, for the audience that has never met you before, tell us a little bit about yourself and what does your life look like now?
Well, like she said, my name is Judy Stovall. I am a full-time practice manager in the field of rheumatology, also recently urology. So I work full-time. My husband and I also are full-time pastors of a church located in Bridgeport, Connecticut. I am also the founder of Universal Sisters, which is a women's empowerment group, and we meet every morning at 6 a.m. We have an inspirational prayer line, and I have women globally from all over the world that dial in just to be empowered and encouraged, early in the morning. I'm a wife to a wonderful, amazing, really handsome husband.
He's
And
also
I
very
have
funny. I had the pleasure of meeting him.
Yes. I have 3 children, 2 sons, 1 daughter, and I have 3.5 grandchildren. 1 is still baking and on the way. So, yeah, so
Well,
I'm a GMA too.
it sounds like your impact has a huge reach as it is today. And
Yeah,
I know I've tuned in more than once to your prayer line, and it's really impressive.
thank you. Thank you.
So everything sounds wonderful, but like all of our guests and like most people out there, things haven't always been this good. Am I right?
No.
So can you take us back to a time of what life looked like before everything changed and you became a pastor and a practice manager and a wife to an amazing husband and had this awesome reach with your women's line?
Yeah, so let's see. Let's take one time because I'm sure, as you know, many of us have had many hurdles in life and many things that have shaped us in many different ways, good and bad, right?
Hmm.
I would say the biggest turning point in my life is my first marriage. I was in a very bad marriage, my first marriage, and it was verbally, physically abusive. I gotta admit, I was doing some of the punching too, but that's how it was. It was just a mess, and I met somebody who I thought that I could save, and in the process of trying to save that person, I went really, really low and really deep, and I lost myself in the process. My father, I grew up in a Christian home, so my father was a pastor of the church, so I felt like there was kinda like this light that, was always on us to be a certain way and to live a certain way and to live by certain standards, and I really got caught up in just, what everybody else thought and really what everybody else, their expectation was of my life, and, I fell to a really dark place where I was trying to help him to be, free from drug abuse and alcohol abuse. And I just got to the point where I gave everything I had to try and, save this person, to save this marriage, to save, my reputation, what this church girl was supposed to look
Yeah.
like,
So
that I became that person.
So let's take it back just a little bit. And I want to make sure that we really understand kind of the full scope of this. What
Yeah.
was life growing up? You said that you grew up the daughter of a pastor and felt like you had these pressures put on you. Tell me what it was like growing up in your home.
Yeah, and I don't wouldn't even say that the pressures were put on me by my parents themselves. The pressure came from just the expectation of what it looked like to be the pastor's daughter, and to grow up in a Christian home. My parents were wonderful. I've never once in my life saw my parents have an argument. There was 8 of us. I have 5 sisters and 2 brothers. It was a very lively household. There was so much love. There was so much support. I didn't see anything that a lot of people say, you grow up seeing it and then you become it. I didn't have any of that. I came from a perfectly normal, wonderful household. And we were just accustomed to helping everybody. I mean, strangers would come and live with us for months at a time. I'd be like, who's that in my bedroom? So I came from a very healthy home.
So, what were these expectations though? I mean, whoever put them on you, whether it was yourself or, pressure of being I've heard of the term preacher's kid. Is that a term that you've heard or used before? Sure.
So
So what pressures are put on a preacher's kid? What expectations do you feel like you had?
So when you are a PK, as they call it, like a preacher's kid, I don't know. Sometimes you feel like you have to be perfect. You feel like, you have to do everything biblically. I grew up learning, you don't have sex before marriage. You don't have children out of wedlock. I broke all of those rules, just so you know, like every single one of them. Growing up, trying to be, rebellious and all of that. So you don't do that. And then, there's an expectation that if that does happen, that you're supposed to get married, to that person. Then, I had this expectation also that not only the church, that God himself would be mad at me if the marriage didn't work, that if I got a divorce, that, I would be ruined in some way. And that is still a great big hindrance in the church, at least where I come from today, that there's this thing where people feel like, oh, if you're divorced, you're not good anymore, you know and it's ruined a lot of lives. It's not true. That's not the loving God that I found afterwards, who was forgiving and who wanted to, give us a second chance, and who wanted to love us. And I had to really get to know the Bible and to know God for myself, to know that God's not this great big God who's looking to just beat you over the head every time you make a mistake. He's a loving, forgiving God. And I think a lot of people have stayed in abusive marriages. They stayed in bad relationships because they have had erroneous teaching, or no one ever took the time to tell them that, God is still going to love them even if they make mistakes, you know?
There's one Catholic priest that's in this area that I happen to represent a few different people from that church. And he did such a good job of that. Really, really talking to them and counseling. Of course, he did counseling to try to save the marriage and all that first. But once
Absolutely.
he made it clear that there were other issues at play in every one of the cases I had, there was some kind of abuse.
Yeah.
You know, he really did help explain the teachings in a different way, and I think that's important. But
Yeah.
for continuity of story, tell us, how'd you meet your first husband? When did you get married? And what what was that marriage like?
I met him when I was probably about 20 years old. Actually before that, because I had my first son, when I was 21 years old, and he's the father of my first son. My son is absolutely amazing. I love him. That part I wouldn't change for anything. I met him, and like your parents know when they know. Like from the beginning, my dad was like, no. No, 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 that's not the one. But I was like, I'm gonna prove him wrong, and I'm gonna, I should have known he was crazy. He like followed me home the first night I met him from this club, and
Ooh,
he started stalking me. And I was like, what was wrong with me that I didn't see a sign then? But in any case,
sign that it was love,
I
right?
don't uh, I
Sign
found
that
it a
it was
little
love, right?
flattering. I don't know why. Yeah. So I met him when I was very young, and because I had a baby by him, that was another reason why I felt like, well, I have to make this work. I'm stuck with this now.
What did a successful life look like to you at that point?
Married in a beautiful house with the white picket fence, and just us going to church together, loving God, being successful in whatever we were doing. And it was the total opposite of all of that. It was like, for the years that we were together, it was a living hell. It was horrible.
Like what?
So back then I was really, really naive, and I didn't even know this was when crack cocaine started coming on the scene, and I didn't know what that was. I didn't know the power that it had to transform people, but I started he started telling me things that just didn't make sense, and it's such a horrible, bad addiction. Thank God I never did that, but, I had my share of other things I did, so I'm not judging, but, um, things started missing from the home. He started pawning things from the
Ooh,
home, and it got so bad. This is the lowest of the low, that he was taking my son's formula and selling it, the baby milk. Who
yeah,
knew there'd be a market for baby milk? Yeah, his formula. I would buy it and he would take it back to the store for money, because it's very expensive. It still is.
yeah.
It's probably even more expensive today. I don't know. My children are grown now, but, just things were missing, and I was like, "What could have such a hold on someone that they would take out of their own baby's mouth?" And I started to, get some education about what this was, and then people started telling me what was going on, and then tragic things started happening. He started getting involved with the wrong people. People were knocking on my door. People were asking for money. My son, when he was a baby, my house got shot up. T1 bullets went through my house, thank God. My child, that's the craziest story. Like, when that happened that morning, I know it was God was telling me to bring my son to daycare, and I was rushing, and he's like, "No, no, no, just leave him home with me." I get to work, I'm unsettled. I literally was sitting getting ready to have lunch, and the voice of God told me, "Go home and get your son." I went home, I rushed, got my son, brought him to my sister's house. I had just made it back to work, and my phone was ringing off the hook, and it was the police telling me that someone had shot up my home. I got left again, went to the house. There was, I think they said 21 bullets had went through my son's nursery. Like, he would have literally been dead if I didn't go and on my lunch break and get him. Like, that was my life. There was people coming looking for him. My life was in danger. My car was getting shot up. I'd be in places, I'd come out, and it's like I was like, it was crazy, and my father's like, "This you have to leave, like, you're gonna die."
So,
And I was like, "No, I'm gonna be okay," still in denial. So there were many moments like that, many times where people chased us on the highway. People were looking because his drug habit, I guess, was so bad that he owed so many people. They would come, and these people were ruthless. They had no regard for me having a son or me as a woman. They were just coming to bring destruction. So it was one bad story after the other, Christy. It was horrible. When I think about it now, I didn't even know how I stayed as long as I did.
what was the moment when everything truly fell apart for you?
I think that was my moment. Um, I was like, it's not just about me, it's about my son too. I can't, and I remember, this happened, and I came home, I think about a couple weeks later, and someone had actually broke into the house and ransacked the house. I mean, took everything and just turned my whole house upside down. And I remember that night, Christy, because I still had this desire to want to save him. Like, I was like, I don't want, I remember that night laying down, and I prayed and I said, "Lord, if you will just take this desire that I have away from me to want to save him, to want to stay. And if you just help me through this," because I was distraught at that moment. I was like living in fear. I was like, I couldn't sleep. Um, I said, "If you help me to get out, I promise I will never ever go back." Because there had been so many times I left, I came back, I left, I came back, I left, I came back. And this is so crazy. I literally woke up the next morning. I looked at him and I said, "I'm done. I'm leaving." And I left. and I
What made
left.
this time different?
Like, I think just, I just know that God had given me the strength to do it because I probably, if I didn't, I probably would have died in the process. And then I had my son, if I didn't have my son, Javon, it was just about me, but I was being selfish trying to stay knowing that, you know, I was putting his life in danger too. So, that was a big part of it. And like, just a couple weeks before that, my father had asked me that question and really made me think. He's like, is this worth dying for? And no one had ever asked me that, and, that made me leave.
So you mentioned you tried before or you thought about it before?
No, I did. I would leave, go stay at my parents' house, say, I'm not coming back," and then he'd come in and pick me up, and I'd go back, just keep going back, and it was like I felt so bad for my son, because he was like he really in spite of all of that, like, my son, like, really loved him, and he really loved my son, like, but he just couldn't get his life together, and I was like, "No, I can't. I just can't do it anymore," and, I know not because I knew that leaving him would also mean that I would have to take my son away because he would be in danger if I was not gonna let him take him for a weekend or take him, until he got himself, together. So, I knew that it was gonna be a trickle effect of many things that would happen from that point on.
No, that makes a lot of sense. The average number of times it takes women in particular to leave a domestically violent relationship is 7 times.
Really? Oh, yeah, I probably did it 7 at least.
I mean, and that's average. Some are a little more, some are less, but 7 times because of exactly what you're saying. Sometimes it's a child in common and you know that child loves their other parent and they love them and you want to be there to protect them because if you're not there, what's happening? Or also finances. They really struggle, not sure what to do, especially if they've been a stay-at-home parent.
Right, right.
But 7's the average, and so what you went through is so incredibly normal, and if somebody is listening to this and they're in that kind of relationship, the fact that it didn't stick the first time, the second time, the third time doesn't mean it won't stick the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, or 7th. It doesn't matter how many times you leave so long as you keep trying because each time you learn something new.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
do you think that played true for you? Did you learn something new each time you did it that maybe helped that final time?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm also not like, I'm not a promoter of divorce, and I don't want people to be divorced, but I don't want them to die, and I gotta tell you, my father's story came from a personal story with him being a pastor, and, there was a woman years ago that was in a domestic abuse, relationship, and he and some of the other pastors were counseling her, and one of the other pastors told her, you stay, God's going to work it out, you stick it out, and he ended up killing her, and it haunted my father for years. And it changed, how he was, as a pastor, as a person. And he just said, listen, I don't believe that God wants us to stay in a relationship that's going to kill us. He says that's just crazy, so that was a turning point for him and probably some of the other pastors too. Said you got to be very careful how you counsel people, especially if they're in abusive relationships. They gotta take care of themselves and be safe.
You do. And unfortunately, and I've been a part of many divorces in what I do for a living. And I'm like you, I'm not out there promoting divorce, being like, yay, it's the best thing ever. Like everybody
Right.
should get divorced. That's not true. But if you do have only one life to live. And as you pointed out, you want to actually get to live. And, one of the harder divorces that I have been a part of was a very similar situation here in Maryland where it was this client's 3rd time actually coming to me trying to leave, and the church pastors and elders came to her house, had another sit down with her and talked to her about how he has repented and he has, done this and that God has forgiven him and you need to forgive him too. And thankfully she did not pass away, but there were some serious injuries.
Yeah.
Not gonna say more than that because of client confidentiality, but there were some serious injuries, and it wielded
Forgiveness
power.
doesn't mean you have to stay. I mean, I forgave him too. To this day, I forgive him. I don't have any hard feelings towards him or anything, but that didn't mean that that was what God had for me. That wasn't my that wasn't for me, you know? And it's not for everyone. I don't tell people, "Oh, someone's gonna hit you upside the head, they're gonna be abusive. Oh, just stay and let God work it out." I said, "No, girlfriend, get some help, go to the police, do what you need to do and protect yourself," you know? So, I've learned that, and, I just wish that there were more people who would, help people, especially like where I come from in the church. There's still a lot of people that believe that, you're ruined after a divorce, that you can never be remarried, that God won't forgive you, and it's so distasteful, and it paints such a bad picture about who God is. And I want to be that voice to tell them that that is not true, that God will still love you, and you can be remarried, and you can be happy, and you can be successful. And I'm living it now because I have the absolutely best husband now. And I didn't even know a person like him existed. But if I would have just, went by that stigmatism of, religion, it's not a relationship with God, it's religion, it's a taught way. If I would have stuck to that, I would have probably not been here to tell my story today.
So you made the decision and you finally left. What practical steps or habits helped you start again?
So the crazy thing is that once I left, my life got worse because I felt like such a failure. I felt embarrassed, of everything I went through. And I wrote this book. I don't know if you've seen it. I wrote this book
I
for
have.
family. So my life became plagued by all of these ifs. I kept saying, "What if this? What I shouldn't have done this, and what if this, and if only I would have did this, and if that." And I went from bad to the worst. I went to like, I don't want to be involved with church anymore. I don't want God. I don't want anything. I just want to live my life. I want to do what I want to do. And boy, did I just spiraled totally out of control. I just went to partying and doing everything that I wanted to do. I'm like, well, everybody's already looking at me. This is what I was telling myself. They're already judging me. I'm already a failure. I might as well just, do
Go
what I want to do. Go all the way in. Right. And I did. I went all the way in. I spiraled totally, like, out of control. And for a few years, I was just out of touch with everyone and everything. And I ended up going, for a year to, a Christian women's home to get my life rehabilitated, and that was another turning point in my life where I really, like, rededicated myself to the Lord. I really started praying and really finding myself again, who I was. My entire being went through a metamorphosis, and when I say, I mean from my complexion to just the inside of me, my hurts, my pains, everything just went from, I just did this whole searching of life to re-find who Judy was. And for a year, yeah, 9 months, I was there. I lived there. I was separated from my son. He was there, he was with my parents. I would see him on the weekends, and cleansed myself. I did everything I could to rebuild myself. And, that was a huge turning point for my life too, because I came out of there, and from the time I graduated from there, it's like I got my focus back. I was like, "Okay, I'm doing this." I got back out into the workforce. I found a job right away because I knew my medical billing and all of that stuff. I had done it for years, so it wasn't hard for me to find a job. Then I met my husband, who I'm married to now. Like, everything started happening quick, and that's really, one day I was praying, and that's what the Lord said. He says, "If you stay committed to this, and I'm going to do a quick work for you, everything's going to happen." And I was like, "Really, God?" Like, okay, and it did. I got my job back. I've found I started dating my husband. I We got married within a year. I was promoted from one position to a next, to the next, to the next. Like, everything was just happening. It was just so wonderful. And I was like, finally, like all of the hell I went through, like something good is happening in my life. And I'm going to tell you, from then, it's just been progressively just getting better and better and better and better.
So you told us about the job. You got the first one, you got getting promoted. How did you meet your current husband?
So at church, it's funny how we both grew up in that church. His mom attended the church too, and after I left the Christian women's home, I enrolled into a Bible school at our church, and he was attending also. And we got two different versions of the story. He says I was checking him out, but we got two different versions of the story. Like I was like leaving one day and I saw him and he saw me and I was like, who's that? I'm like, oh, that's Polly's son. Like, I don't know him, but I don't really know him. And we just kind of started talking. And then one of the ladies in the church, we both sing. So she was like, maybe for like the holiday, you guys should like do something together for the Christmas program. And we were like, and we started
Looks like a
talking and
matchmaker there.
yeah, we've been talking ever since.
I love it. And your pastor is of a church. How did that happen?
So, oh boy. When me and him got together after we got married, we became the youth pastors of the church. Now, like I said, this church was started by my father and some other pastors. So, um, we were youth pastors in a church working together. We had a big church in Monroe, Connecticut, and we ended up closing down that church. And we also have had the Bridgeport location, which is where we pastor now. And the my father passed away. The other pastor who founded the ministry, Bobby Davis, he passed away, and after he passed away, we were the successors. So they put me and Marcus in place to pastor the church. And let's see, he passed away in 2014. So we've been pastoring ever since.
12 years. And what about your morning 6 a.m. club? Tell us about how did that start? How many join? I mean, again, I've been on it, but tell our listeners about that because I think that's awesome.
It's amazing. So I do have one of the elders in our church, this sweet little lady. Her name is Elder Verdell. I've kind of assigned the facilitating of the line to her now. But I started this Universal Sisters. First, my husband started Universal Brothers, where because we have a line for the men and for the women. So 6 a.m. every morning we
And
would
Eastern
dial
Standard
in.
Time, right? 6 a.m. Eastern Standard.
Yes, yes.
Okay, just checking because people I know are listening to this on the other coast. But okay, 6 a.m.
Yes,
Eastern.
yes. And I'll provide you the number for anybody that's interested.
I will make sure it's in the
Um,
show notes.
okay. So he started the Universal Brothers lines. This is so crazy because we started these lines pre-COVID. So we start the lines and he's like, you should do one for women. I'm like, I don't have time. I'm working and not, not. And he's like, you should do it. And I did it. And I think the first time I put it out there, I was going to do this line. The first time there was like 27 women that dialed in and it was amazing. But I was like, every morning it was me. I was like, okay. And then I was like, okay, how can I make this less, work for me. So I started incorporating the women on the line that they would start sharing their stories. They started sharing such deep personal stories. And then at the end, we would pray for one another. And then we would also talk about all the commonalities. Like somebody else would be on the phone, like, I was abused when I was a child too. I went through that too. I went through this. And we formed this bond of universal sisters. At one point, I had a lady from Africa that was joining, and I had a lady from Jamaica that was joining. Like, so there's people all over the world, different states that call in, and we just found all these wonderful commonalities. And then we would pray with one another and just encourage one another. And then I kind of gave it over to Elder Verdell. I'm like, can you facilitate the line? So she finds someone every morning. We have someone that comes on that does maybe a song, someone does a prayer, a scripture, and then we have someone that comes in ministers, and then the women give comments at the end, and we connect. And it's been going strong. I mean, it's been amazing. So I love it.
No, that sounds amazing, and it sounds like it helps a lot of women who are going through a hard time.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So, looking back, one of the questions I asked you was at the time that you were in your first marriage, I asked you what a successful life looked like. What does a successful life look like to you now?
I could probably, I guess people have a different idea of what success looks for me. For me, my success, first and foremost, is rooted and grounded in my relationship with God. That I couldn't even be the wife that I am, or the mother or the Gma that I am, or the friend or the sister that I am to anyone if I had not first really rooted and grounded my relationship with God and got to know him for myself as who I knew him to be. That's what the Bible tells us, that we should study to show our own self approved, right? So I began to find out that God was just so loving and so forgiving, and my identity and who I was shaped in him. I didn't have to be anything to anybody else. I didn't have to be like anybody else. I began to love myself and find ways to empower myself. And I got to say, I had to learn to be okay alone first. So before Marcus, my wonderful husband, came now, I had to learn to love Judy, and I had to learn that I was enough. If it was just me and God, I was still okay. And that's hard for a lot of women because they look for a man to complete them.
Yeah.
And I always tell women when I counsel them, don't say somebody completes you. Don't give anybody that much power to say, "Oh, you complete me." No, you have to be complete already, because if you're not and you're looking for someone else to complete you when they're running on empty or whatever, you both are a mess, right? So nobody completes you. You have to be complete within yourself. And I don't believe that God would have ever sent me my husband until I got to the point where I realized that. So my successful life looks like, um, having that relationship with God, having a spouse who also understands that he needs his own relationship with God, spending time with my children, my grandchildren. It's so much more than, a lot of people think success is determined by money or fame or anything like that. But as you know, there's so many people that have all of that and they still don't have peace and they still don't have joy, and they still wake up every morning wondering how they're going to cope. So unless you have that something, you have to have your spirituality, you have to know who you are, you have to be confident in who you are, you have to love who you are. And then you have flowers, you have something to give to somebody else. Like, you can't really give, if you're running on empty yourself every single day. So I just, I love myself and I love who I am in God, in Christ. Like, I love who I am, and I have a wonderful, amazing husband. I don't know how I got so blessed with him, but he's a blessing. And I have wonderful children and my grandchildren. And to me, that's what's most important. Having them around the table around holidays, and having them look at me and their father, my husband, and say, you know what, I want to be like you guys, like when I grow up. To me, that's the ultimate success, for your kids to look at you and see something that they thrive to be.
So at this point, do you see that abusive first marriage as a gift, or is that something you still wrestle with?
Ugh. A gift's a little that's a little bit.
Fair?
It's definitely, it shaped my journey. Um, I know a lot of people say, I wouldn't trade anything, I wouldn't change anything. Yeah, I would. There's some things I absolutely wish I never had to endure. There's some things I absolutely wish I never did. There's some things I absolutely wish I never accepted for my life. There's a lot of things that I feel like If I could take it back, I would, but I know that, all of those things work together somehow for my good. I think of it, I was just telling a girl this the other day. It's like all those ingredients, like that make that cake, they're not good alone. Like you wouldn't just eat a spoonful of flour, or just the egg raw. But when you put them all together, something beautiful happens. So I guess
I
you
love
need
that
it.
metaphor.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess all of it works together, but there are some things that I don't think are a gift. I just is like, "Oh, that was a hard lesson to learn."
If someone was in the middle of their own abusive relationship, especially if whether they're a PK or not, but they have a religious upbringing that's telling them, I can't leave or I will not be honoring my word to God. I will not be, living up to the tenets of my faith. What would you tell them right now?
Yeah. I would tell them, that that is not true. I would tell them that you are worth more, that God didn't put you on this earth, to be abused. I'm not talking about like that you just have a little argument, you're ready to get a divorce. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you are in a position where you're fighting for your life, and you know that you have to get out, get help, do what you need to do. Don't stay because of an expectation that you had that's been put on you, because God is not expecting you to sit and stay in an abusive relationship. God, no, he's not. He doesn't want you to die. He doesn't want you to be verbally or mentally or physically abused. I would say find, that relationship with God, get some good counseling, get somebody who you can, talk to, who's going to give you the truth, and save yourself by any means necessary. Save yourself, because we'll never hear your story if you're 6 feet under.
Okay, I want you to finish this sentence. I ask every guest to do this one. This is not the end, it's the beginning of blank.
This is not the end. This is the beginning of your forever.
Judy, thank you so much for being on the show. I will make sure in the show notes you're going to get me the number for the line, and so we go and find it. And also, I'll make sure that we link your book. Do you want to say something a little bit about your book?
Yeah, well, you can get it on Amazon. It's called If Only by Judy Stovall. You can get it on Amazon. I'll actually provide that link for you too. So if people want to click on the link to get the book, I would say that after you read this book, give it to someone, especially, I harp on a lot the young adults, ages 19 to like 40, because it's like their life is being shaped, in those years. And if after you read it, pass it on or give it to somebody else, it could really save their life.
Thank you so much. And if anybody wanted to find you and follow you on social media or check out your church, where else could they go to find you?
You could find me. I'm on social media under my name, Judy Stovall. I'm still trying to get, like Instagrammy and all of that stuff.
Ooh.
I need some help with that. But if you just Google my name on Facebook, you'll find me. The name of our church is Universal Faith Outreach Ministry, located at 66 Harriet Street in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Everyone is welcome. We call ourselves the House of Love. So if you're looking for love, you're looking to be loved, and you're looking for a God who is love, then that's the place for you.
Thank you so much again. We really appreciate having you, and thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing such a amazing story.
Thanks for having me, Christy. I appreciate it.